Okay, so in DFID, we have a 3% commitment of the DFID budget to invest in research and development, which is classified as a capital expenditure because it contributes to global good. So it's not there just for DFID to use, it's there for access, for everybody to access. And the reason that DFID's committed to that 3% is because we see it as an essential piece of the jigsaw of a development response. You have a problem, you need a response. Evidence is one of the key legs on the stool. Otherwise, you're not going to develop effective programming, effective response, and you're not going to be able to base your decision making on really robust knowledge base. So that's why we see it as a essential part of our own decision making. But obviously, we work extensively with other partners around the world. We work with national governments. We work with international organisations, and you know, a lot of those international organisations have a lot more money to spend than we do. Harmonising our approaches, basing our collective action on really strong evidence is a real priority for us as an organisation. Yes, I mean, we have in the department that I'm responsible for, we have more than 130 active programmes, and many of those are multi-million-pound programmes. So they're extensive in their own right, and every time that we develop a research programme, the business case is written within DFID, and then the commissioning exercise begins to find the right partner to work with. As part of that process, it's the impact needs to be identified at the outset. What is the problem that you're trying to fix, and what is the audience that you're maybe trying to influence, or the reach that you're trying to have in terms of your sort of target stakeholders. That needs to be very clearly identified at the outset. And I would say that one of the things that we struggle with is the research programs having the access themselves. And you know, working with country offices, it can be really helpful to engage the research hubs that we have. 2 research hubs, one in Nairobi and one in Delhi, and they work regionally with our country offices who actually have a lot of access to the ministries, to the other partners who are very active in a given country. So when it comes to country impact, I think that convening power is really important, partnership is really important, researchers not trying to work in isolation, but use DFID and use others that we can work with to try and have the desired reach. Yeah, I mean, it is a really live issue for us, actually. So even if we say we spend 3% on research and evidence, there are still going to be parts of the organisation who might think that money could be spent better elsewhere. And I think that's when it comes to the sometimes intangible nature of some of the research that we do. So a real priority for us is to ensure absolute policy relevance. Sometimes it's particularly difficult because we might be developing a research programme that's going to last for 8 years. The political cycle, the policy issues change on a much more frequent basis than that, particularly when you have new ministers, new government. So you have to have a certain nimble element to our function, if you like. I think the biggest barriers are time, people's time to read the evidence and understand the evidence and access it. So sometimes they're not necessarily going to come to us for it, but we may need to be more proactive in our offer from this part of DFID. I think the other issue, which is coming up at this conference now, is the accessibility, the palatability of the information when it comes out of research. Just making sure that it is really, you know, it's easy to understand. I know these are complex issues, but it is really important to make the information easy to use, if you like, by those who are then in other parts of the business. But I wouldn't say we're there yet. We have developed a part of Research and Evidence Division which is purely about that service inside DFID and beyond in other parts of government. I mean, I think there are a number of sort of operational issues that we are looking at, and one of those, so we now have the wonderful scenario of having more ODA research money available across government. But this brings its challenges. So the GCRF is new, relatively speaking. DFID's obviously been active in the research space for decades. And then also there's the Newton Fund, and then the Department for Health and Social Care are very busy working on infectious diseases, health system strengthening. So our partnerships across government are really, really important. And as we approach the next spending review, which we expect to start to be planned for probably in the middle of next year or maybe into the autumn 2019, we really are committed to working together to make sure that we've got a clear narrative that sets out what the different niches are of the funding streams that are available. So that's quite important. I think for DFID it's likely to be that, you know, those of you who work with us know that we're always asking for clarity on the pathways to impact. We're looking for evidence that this impact is there, that it is policy relevant for the priorities that the organisation is working on at the moment. And I don't think that's going to change. A lot of our research is really applied. You know, we're investing in product development in the health sector. We're investing in a lot of quite hard science around technology for maybe it's, you know, access to energy or clean cook stoves, through to the social science research that we're discussing more actively here today. So there'll still be a mix, but I think that DFID really will be looking at its role as on the sort of country policy relevant end, probably less so on the more basic science side. But that's all under discussion with the rest of the funders in government. I think two priorities definitely for us coming up are Africa, in a kind of extensive horizon scanning exercise that we've done. There's a new government Africa strategy. DFID has a very strong role to play in that. So we expect our activity and footprint to expand in Africa, because we know that that's where most of the world's poor will be in the foreseeable future. And then technology. We're wanting to be harnessing technology for development. And that's not just in the hard science area, looking at what technology can do in behavioural change and the social sciences. So watch this space. We have struggled a little bit just in terms of the speed of approvals. So I used the cook stove example. That was approved within 3 days, and we were trying to get an education program, research program through, and it took considerably longer than that, even up to several months. So the way that the importance of it is that we are, UK aid across government is investing an awful lot of money in things like economic development, in education, and in health, and lots of other sectors, in fragile and conflict-affected states. The proportionality of the evidence relative to that spend, the proportionality that's going on research is too low. It's been historically too low for a long time. And particularly in education, a business case that we've just had approved is on education in protracted crisis. We know there are more protracted crises in the world than ever before. Some young people are spending their entire childhood in a displaced setting, but we don't necessarily know how to deliver quality education for those sustained periods of time, how to retain teachers, how to ensure that there's real access. So, you know, you have to just develop the argument very clearly and make sure that the ministers can understand how this fits into the overall picture. It's not a case of either the research or the spend on implementation. It's part of the same response. So we're still working on it.